The wind screamed through the steel bones of Elerani, a floating junk station lost in the outer dark of the galaxy. Lights flickered weakly overhead, casting pale colors on rusted walls and endless piles of discarded machines. The whole place smelled of oil, smoke, and despair. Among the trash and shadows, a small girl crept on bare feet, shivering as she searched through scraps for anything warm. Her body was thin, more bones than skin, and her silver hair clung to her face like wet threads. Her clothes were torn and stained, barely enough to cover her. Her purple eyes glowed faintly in the dark, but they were filled with fear. She had no name anyone here knew, no parents, no protection, just another half-human child tossed aside. After the wars ended, at night she slept under broken cargo crates and old tarps, teeth chattering, stomach aching. She didn't cry anymore. Crying took energy, and she needed every drop of it just to survive. As she crawled under a dented engine block, looking for cloth or plastic she could wrap around herself, footsteps echoed nearby. She froze. Heavy boots? She knew what came with boots. Enforcers, slavers, thieves. She held her breath and tried to disappear into the shadows. Then a shape knelt beside her, not rough or shouting, just calm. A human man, tall and wrapped in a dark coat, slowly reached into his bag and pulled out something thick and soft. A blanket. He didn't throw it or speak sharply. It gently around her shoulders, like he knew what it was like to be cold and afraid. His voice was rough, but kind. "You don't have to stay out here anymore." She stared at him with wide eyes, unsure if he was real. No one helped on Eleronin. People stole, fought, and lied. That was the way. But this man, he looked sad, not angry or greedy, just tired and sad. He stood up and held out his hand. Behind him, a small ship hovered above the landing pad. Lights, glowing softly, engines humming like a heartbeat. "My name's Dane," he said. "I've got food, warm water, a place to sleep. Come with me." She didn't answer. Her body wanted to run, but her heart stayed still. She looked at the blanket, then back at his face. Something inside her moved. A memory, maybe, of before the pain. She reached out and took his hand, didn't grip hard or pull fast. He just walked with her, slow and steady, through the rusted gates and into the soft lights of his ship. As the door closed behind them, the cold faded. And for the first time in as long as she could remember, the girl felt warmth that wasn't stolen. She didn't know where he was taking her. She didn't know if it would last. But in that moment, wrapped in the blanket and sitting beside a quiet stranger, she felt something small but powerful begin to grow. Safety, hope, maybe even the start of a home. The ship was old, but full of life. Its walls hummed with quiet energy, and the lights were warm instead of harsh. It felt different from the cold world she had known before. The girl sat in the corner of the main room, the blanket still wrapped around her, while the man Dane moved around with practiced ease, making food, checking controls, and speaking now and then to a soft, motherly voice that came from the ship itself. That voice belonged to Rhea, the ship's AI, who seemed more like a gentle guardian than a machine. "Who's the little one?" Rhea asked with calm curiosity. Dane glanced at the girl, then answered, "She hasn't said anything yet." The girl listened, but stayed quiet. She didn't trust her voice. It had betrayed her before, brought pain, but the sound of Rhea made her chest feel lighter. It wasn't cold and sharp like the voices of the labs and guards from her past. It was soft, like wind in trees she had only seen in dreams. As the hours passed, Dane gave her warm food. Real food, not scraps or stolen cans. She ate slowly at first, watching him with cautious eyes, ready to run if he made a sudden move. But he didn't. He just let her be, like he understood. He showed her the different parts of the ship: a small kitchen, a sleeping room, a round window where she could see stars drifting through the black. She had never seen stars like that before. It's beautiful, endless, and not behind bars. Dane told her stories about Earth, the home of humans, a place she had never known. Forests with tall green trees, oceans that stretched forever, Snow that fell. Soft and cold. Music that made people laugh and cry. She listened, eyes wide, mind pulling each image into her memory like treasure. When Dane showed her an old holoprojector, she watched images flicker into the air, a young girl running through. A field of flowers, a city lit with candles at night, people dancing under falling leaves. Something about it all felt both strange and familiar, like a dream she had lost long ago. Slowly, she began to speak. Not much, just a word here and there. Her voice was small and dry, like it hadn't been used in years. When Rhea asked gently, "What's your name, dear?" The girl hesitated, then whispered, "Leary." Dane smiled at her for the first time, not just with his mouth, but with his whole face. "That's a good name," he said. She didn't know where it came from. Maybe it wasn't her real name. It was just the one that came to her in that quiet moment. But it felt right. Dad. As the days passed, Leary walked more freely around the ship. She watched Dane repair panels, polish the old walls, and check star maps. She sat in the co-pilot chair, pressing buttons under his watchful eye. He let her learn, never rushed her, never scolded. Rhea became like a voice in her head. Kind, patient, always ready to answer her questions. Leary began to sleep without fear, eat without hiding, and speak without flinching. But far out in the stars, trouble stirred. One day, as Dane scanned the galactic signals, a sharp message came through, coded and full of warnings. A race called the Threx Dominion was moving across the outer colonies, burning everything in their path. They used strange weapons. Fast. Ships. And somehow, they had tech that looked human, but twisted and wrong. Dane leaned back in his chair, his face darkening. "This isn't right," he muttered. He tapped a command, bringing up an image of a strange, dark ship with claws. For wings. They shouldn't have that kind of power. Leary stepped closer, eyes fixed on the screen. Her hands trembled. She knew those shapes, those colors, those symbols. Dane noticed and turned to her. "You've seen this before?" She nodded. "Slowly, they showed me these. In the lab. When I was hooked to the machine." Her voice broke. Dane's expression changed. He knelt in front of her, his voice quiet. "Leary, do you remember anything else?" She closed her eyes. Images. Flashed white rooms, metal arms, pain, voices speaking in a strange alien tongue. In a glowing gate with markings on the walls. Her eyes snapped open. "They want something." "A gate." "They said it's from before, from Earth's old war." Dane stood up fast. "The Soul Archive," he whispered. "That's what they're—" After Rhea chimed in, her voice tense. "Ah! If they reach the archive and unlock it, they could become unstoppable." Leary stepped forward. "I remember where the symbols point. I can help." Dane looked at her, not as a scared child anymore, but as someone who had survived something terrible and still chose to help others. He gave a firm nod. "Then we stopped them. Together." And just like that, the girl who had once searched trash for scraps became the key to something far greater than she had ever imagined. The ship moved through the dark stretch of space, stars blinking slowly outside the windows like ancient watchers. Inside, Leary sat near the console, her eyes locked on the glowing screen that showed strange symbols and flight paths. Dane had sent out messages to every contact he still trusted: old soldiers, smugglers, resistance leaders, and even a few alien allies from wars long past. He knew the Threx Dominion was not just attacking random colonies. They had a goal. Something. Hidden and powerful. And Leary, even with her painful memories and quiet voice, had given them the first real clue. She remembered the symbols from the lab, the strange gate with twisting shapes and lights. The Threx weren't just destroying. They were searching. And what they wanted was something called the Soul Archive. Dane explained to her that the archive was a vault of ancient Earth knowledge and forbidden technology, created before Earth fell. No one knew exactly what was inside. Some said it held maps to lost weapons. Others claimed it had the last thoughts of Earth's greatest minds stored in crystal memory. Whatever it was, it had been locked away near the Hellion cluster, surrounded by a natural black sun and a field of dead satellites. If the Threx found it, they could learn how to twist human tech further and become unstoppable. Dane and Leary worked together. She described the layout of the lab, the guards, the sounds she remembered, even smells and colors. From that, Dane and Rhea pieced together the likely location of the Threx base. It wasn't just a base. It was a massive mobile fortress hidden inside a hollow asteroid, using stolen Earth tech to mask its presence. Dane's face grew hard as he studied the readings. "They've taken too much already," he said, "and now they want the one thing that could end everything." Leary stayed beside him, trying to ignore the fear building in her chest. She had escaped once, but the thought of going back near those monsters chilled her. Even now, she could feel the phantom pain of the wires they used to plug into her mind, but she also remembered the blanket, the soft food, Rhea's kind voice, and Dane's strong hands. This ship was her home now, and she would fight to protect it. So she spoke. "Up. I can get close. If I hear their speech again, I might remember more." Dane hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Not alone," he said. "Never alone again." They jumped through outer systems, contacting allies. The first to answer was a grizzled captain named Roland, who had fought beside Dane years ago. He brought a half-broken destroyer and a crew of tough, scarred veterans. Next came the Alari twins, alien pilots with sleek stealth ships and minds that worked faster than any computer. A few Grell mercenaries, with bodies like walking tanks, and hearts surprisingly soft for warriors, also joined. Even a few AI-controlled drones from Earth's final defense net responded to Dane's call. Guided by old loyalty codes buried deep inside their circuits, one by one, a fleet formed, not large, not polished, but ready to fight. As the fleet met, in deep space, Leary walked among the halls of each ship. Some people stared, confused by her glowing eyes and quiet steps. Others nodded with respect. They had heard what she'd done, escaped the Threx, carried the code, remembered the symbols. She was small, but to them, she was living proof that the enemy could be wounded. In the command chamber, Dane laid out the plan. The Threx were heading toward the Hylian cluster, where the gate to the archive was hidden behind gravitational storms and old wreckage. They would reach it within days. Dane's fleet would intercept them before they could open the vault. Leary spoke only once, pointing to a part of the map. "They'll use this path. It's quiet, but it lines up with what I saw in the lab." Her voice shook, but her eyes were steady. Rhea confirmed the path with old Earth star charts. The plan was set. As the fleet moved into formation, Leary sat by the main window of the Starhound, her hand pressed against the glass. She stared at the stars and wondered how many children were still trapped like she had been. How many lonely nights waited in the future if they failed. Dane sat beside her. "We might not all make it," he said. She looked at him. "But we have to try." The engines roared to life, the ships turned toward the heart of danger. And for the first time in many years, a human fleet sailed once more, to conquer, but to protect what remained. And at the center of it all was a girl who had once dug through trash for warmth, now carrying the hope of countless worlds. ChatGPT said. The stars blurred past the ship's window as the fleet sped toward the Hylian cluster, each vessel humming with quiet purpose and hidden tension. Leary sat beside Dane on the bridge of the Starhound, her small hands gripping the edges of her seat. Quiet moments between preparations and battle were always the hardest. The silence made space feel heavier, but she kept her eyes forward, listening to Rhea's updates and watching the growing dot on the screen that marked the last known position of the Threx. Dane moved around the ship like a steady flame, checking power levels, reviewing battle plans, and sending final messages to their allies. His voice was calm, but Leary could see the tightness in his jaw, the way his hands clenched just a little too hard around the railing. Everyone knew the next few hours might decide everything. The closer they got, the more Leary's memories returned sharp images of cold labs, strange voices, and the pain of machines digging into her mind. But now she stood taller, her fear buried beneath a spark of something stronger. She was no longer alone. Round her, ships had answered the call. Veterans, aliens, A is. All willing to risk their lives not because they were ordered to, but because they believed something good was still worth protecting. Suddenly, alarms began to blink red, and Ria's voice echoed through the speakers. Enemy fleet ahead. Scans confirm Threx Dominion ships 15 vessels, including the mobile fortress. Dane leaned forward. Position. They're surrounding the archive gate. Energy buildup detected, possible activation attempt. Dane turned to Leary. Are you sure they need to be close to open it? She nodded. They need a living. Coda mind, they've altered to match the gate's patterns. They used me for that. They might be trying it with someone else now. Dane's eyes darkened. Then we hit them fast. Orders rang out across the fleet. Ships shifted formation. Shields powered up. The Alari twins led the stealth units, vanishing into shadow and weaving between enemy patrols. The Grell charged their plasma cannons. Roland's battered destroyer drifted forward, its crew focused and ready. Leary moved to a side console and pulled up the gate symbol, stared at it, trying to remember the rhythm of the lights, the hum of its energy. And then it came clear as day. A pattern, a sequence. Her voice trembled, but she spoke. They'll trigger the gate using a timed pulse wave every 12 seconds, a spike of energy. If we disrupt it before the final pulse, the gate locks for another cycle. Ria ran a simulation, confirmed. One chance. Dane nodded. By that chance, the fleet launched. Missiles streaked through space, lasers lit the dark like lightning, and ships danced between debris and fire. The Threx ships moved like insects, sharp, fast, and cruel, but they hadn't expected this kind of unity. As the battle raged, the Starhound pushed toward the center, straight toward the gate and the massive Threx fortress. Leary stood behind Dane, her eyes wide, feeling each blast shake the floor. We're close, she said. One more minute. Then something hit the Starhound hard. The lights flickered. Ria cried out, starboard engine damaged, we're losing speed. Reroute power, Dane barked. Keep us on course. Leary held the rail and closed her eyes. Reached deep into her memory, into the pain and confusion the Threx had forced on her. There, buried under the fear, she found the rhythm again. She tapped the console, matching the gate's pulse with her fingers. Now, she shouted. Dane hit the disruptor. A beam of raw energy shot from their ship straight into the gate's core. For a breathless moment, everything went still. Then, the gate sparked, light shattering across its surface. And the whole structure let out a deep, hollow boom like the cry of a dying god. The activation had failed. Across the enemy fleet, confusion spread. Their connection to the gate had broken. In that moment of weakness, the Allied fleet struck hard. Roland's destroyer tore through the side of a Threx carrier. The Grell rammed their ships like battering rams. The Alari twins dropped explosive charges in the heart of the enemy formation. One by one, the Threx vessels fell. But they didn't go down without a fight. The mobile fortress turned toward the Starhound, engines burning, weapons locking on. Brace! Ria screamed. But before the fortress could fire, a swarm of Earth's old AI drones arrived, answering Leary's earlier signal. They swirled around the fortress like a metal storm, cutting through armor and blasting engines. The fortress groaned, cracked, and then exploded in a burst of fire and light. The battlefield fell silent. Only drifting debris and flickering sparks remained. Dane slumped back in his seat, breathing hard. It's over, he said. Leary didn't speak. She stared out the window, watching the gate's glow fade away, and for the first time in her life, she felt the weight of fear lift. She had helped stop them. She had saved something ancient and sacred. She turned to Dane. We stopped. Them, she whispered. He looked at her, pride shining in his tired eyes. No, Leary, you did. The wreckage of the battle drifted slowly across space, glowing dimly like dying stars. Pieces of Threx ships floated alongside scraps of the old Earth drones, and the once hidden gate now sat cold and silent. On board the Starhound, Leary stood, near the observation window, staring at the quiet aftermath. Her reflection looked back at her thinner than most, eyes glowing faintly from the Threx experiments, but stronger than she had ever felt before. Around her, The crew worked in silence, cleaning up damage, tending to the wounded, and running checks on systems. Dane's voice came gently from behind her, calling her to the command room. When she entered, she found Ria's hologram glowing. Softly, her expression calm and kind. Dane sat at the console, his hands folded, eyes focused on Leary like he had something heavy to say. He turned the screen toward her, showed a map, one far older than the ones they had used in battle. "There's something else," he said quietly. The Threx didn't just want to open the gate. They were also trying to erase something. He tapped a part of the screen. These coordinates, they lead to one of the last hidden Earth stations. A deep archive that wasn't recorded on modern maps. The Threx sent a small team there during the battle. We didn't notice in time. Leary stepped closer. "Why would they go there?" Dane replied to erase proof. "Something about you. Something they didn't want anyone to find." Ria added gently. "Your name, Leary, was not given by chance. It matches an entry in Earth's sealed child protection records." Leary froze. "You mean ... I had a life before the lab?" Dane nodded. "It's possible. If that station holds anything about you, we need to get to it before they destroy it." The Starhound turned once more, engines flaring softly as it flew toward the unknown location, cutting through silent stretches of space no one had traveled in years. The journey was quiet, filled with a different kind of tension, not the fear of a battle, but the weight of truth waiting in the dark. When the ship finally arrived, they found the station half destroyed, its metal hull torn by blasts. A faint energy signature flickered inside, just enough to keep the lights on. Dane, Leary, and 2 crew members suited up and entered. The hallways were cold and dusty, filled with silent echoes of the past. Broken lights sparked as they passed, and old Earth banners hung in tatters. Deeper inside, they found a sealed vault, its entrance marked by a symbol Earth's last crest, a faded sun over a shield. Leary placed her hand on the scanner. 2. Everyone shocked, the door opened. It recognized her. Inside the vault were old records, damaged memory crystals, and storage containers. Ria linked to the system and began downloading files. Her voice came through the comms, calm but shaken. "There's a file here. It's about Project Leary." Dane looked at Leary, his heart sinking. "You weren't just a random test subject," he said softly. "You were part of something planned by humans." Ria read the file aloud. "Project Leary. Linguistic Integrated Reactive Intelligence. Designed to communicate with ancient Earth tech using a human interface. They created children born from volunteers modified slightly, trained to connect with AI minds and gates. But the war came. The labs were attacked. Some children were hidden. Some were taken." Leary stepped back, her breath shaky. "They made me for a purpose." Dane nodded slowly. "But not like the Threx did. Earth wanted peacekeepers' bridges between human memory and the future." Ria added gently, "You weren't made to destroy. You were made to understand." Leary sat on a broken chair, her mind spinning. All her life she thought she had been created by monsters, but now she knew part of her came from loved parents who had given her a gift. A name, a chance to be more than just a test subject. They had wanted her to protect the future. As they gathered what they could, Leary found a small crystal among the wreckage. Ria scanned it. "It's a personal message," she said. "From your mother." Leary clutched it close, too overwhelmed to play it now. She didn't want to cry in front of the others. She wanted to hold on to the moment just a little longer. They returned to the Starhound in silence, the weight of history now heavier than before. In her cabin, Leary finally listened to the message. Her mother's voice was soft, full of warmth. "My little star," it said. "I don't know if you'll ever hear this. But if you do, remember, you were born with a light inside you. They may try to use it, twist it, but it's still yours. Use it to help, to heal. Be brave. Be kind. You are more than a project. You are my daughter." Tears rolled down Leary's cheeks, not from sadness, but from something deeper relief. Love. In the sense that for the first time, she truly knew who she was. Not a weapon, not a mistake, but a girl who had come from love and who had survived to carry that light forward. The stars stretched endlessly ahead as the Starhound flew through quiet space, far from battles and broken stations. Inside, Leary walked through the ship's halls with calm steps, her hand brushing against the walls like she was listening to the heartbeat of her new home. Her mind was still full of her mother's voice, the warmth of that message, and the truth she had finally uncovered. She wasn't lost anymore. She had a name, a past, and a reason to keep going. But even as peace settled over her, danger wasn't finished. One evening, as Rhea ran quiet scans of nearby systems, a strange signal appeared. It pulsed softly, not in Threx code, but in something older, something familiar. Leary rushed to the console, her eyes locked onto the rhythm of the signal. "One of us," she whispered. "Another child from the program." Dane came over, studying the signal. "Where?" Rhea pointed to a small star system, far from any patrol routes. "There's a single ship in orbit around a dead moon. No communication, no movement." Leary's heart pounded. They kept others. "We have to help." Dane didn't hesitate. He gave the order, and the Starhound changed course once again. The journey took only hours, but every second felt heavy. When they reached the moon, they found a dark, broken station floating just above its surface. The life support was failing. Its engines were dead. No answers came when they called. Dane, Leary, and 2 crew members suited up and boarded it. Inside, the station was silent, cold. Every hallway was dim. But something echoed faintly, small footsteps, a breath, a soft hum. Leary followed the sound. At the far end of a dark corridor, they found a sealed room. Dane forced it open. Inside sat a girl, no older than 10, with pale skin, thin limbs, and eyes that glowed just like Leary's. She didn't flinch when they entered. She just looked up slowly, like someone waking from a long dream. Leary stepped forward and knelt. "It's okay," she said gently. "You're safe now." The girl blinked. Her voice was rough, barely a whisper. "Are you real?" Leary reached out and took her hand. "Yes, my name is Leary. I was like you, but we got away." The girl stared at her for a long moment, then collapsed into her arms, shaking and sobbing. Her name was Kale. She had been alone for months, left behind when the Threx pulled out of the system. They had used her as a test core for a machine they couldn't control, then abandoned her when it failed. She had survived by hiding in the walls, feeding off emergency supplies, and listening to echoes through the vents. Leary held her tightly and whispered, "You don't have to hide anymore." They brought Kale back to the Starhound. Rhea ran scans and confirmed she had been part of the same project as Leary, another bridge between human tech and the old Earth systems. But her mind had cracks from too much isolation. She needed time, care, and most of all, a reason to believe she could be whole again. The crew welcomed her gently. The Grell made her a warm meal. The Alari twins gave her a small music box that glowed with soft light. Roland sent her a data chip full of old Earth cartoons. Bit by bit, Kale began to smile. Dane watched all this from a quiet corner, his arms crossed, his eyes full of something heavy. Later that night, Leary found him alone on the upper deck, watching the stars. "You're thinking about the others, aren't you?" she asked. Dane nodded. "If there were 2 of you, there could be more." Leary stepped beside him. "Then we'll find them." He looked at her, something proud in his eyes. "You've changed, you know," she smiled. "I think I've just remembered who I was meant to be." The next morning, the Starhound launched a new mission. With Rhea's help, they scanned old Earth networks and Threx records for signals, like the one Kale had sent. They didn't know how many children were still out there hidden in old labs, trapped in broken machines, or waiting in silence for someone to come. But they would look. Together. Leary taught Kale how to speak to Rhea, how to move through the ship, how to trust again. She told her stories. Not just of the Threx, but of the crew, the stars, and the blanket Dane had wrapped around her. The day they met, Kale listened with wide eyes, holding her music box close like it was treasure. One evening, Kale whispered, "Do you think I could help someone too?" Leary smiled and placed a hand on her shoulder. You already have. The ship moved through the stars again, not chasing war, but searching for lost lights. And wherever they found one, they would bring them home. Because now, Leary wasn't just a survivor. She was a guide, a sister. And with every child they saved, the fire of Earth's hope burned brighter. The Starhound drifted through space like a silent guardian, no longer chasing enemies, but searching for forgotten lives. Every day brought whispers from the edge of the galaxy, echoes of old signals, broken transmissions, or strange readings that hinted at hidden places. Leary stood at the heart of it all, growing stronger, not just in body, but in spirit. With Kale beside her, she felt like a beacon, no longer alone. The crew had become more than a team. They were a family, bound not by blood, but by the will to protect the lost. One evening, a new signal reached them. It was faint, buried beneath solar noise, but it carried a strange rhythm like a heartbeat trying to match a forgotten song. Rhea cleaned it up, and Leary recognized the pattern immediately. It wasn't a distress call. It was a door code. Earth technology, locked behind time and dust, was trying to respond. Dane looked at the coordinates. They pointed to a system log, abandoned, marked as unsalvageable after a collapse in the star's magnetic field. No one had gone there in decades. But Leary felt a tug in her chest. "It's calling to one of us," she said quietly. The crew prepared for trouble. The system was unstable, its gravity unpredictable, and the wreckage of old battles still floated through the dark like the bones of forgotten giants. As the ship approached, static filled the comms, and energy spikes danced across the sensors. Rhea guided them slowly until they saw it, a massive structure buried within an asteroid. It looked like a fortress and a grave at the same time, its surface cracked, its lights dead. But deep inside, something still pulsed. Leary, Dane, and Kale entered the structure with care. Inside, they found signs of old Earth machines' walls, made of human alloys, markings in ancient languages. The air was thin, but the life support had just enough power to keep something alive. And then they heard it, a faint voice. Not crying, not shouting, but speaking calmly. "Sequence 79, Alpha. Repeat. Sequence 79 Alpha." They followed the voice into a chamber filled with machines wrapped around a central pod. Inside was a boy older than Kale, younger than Leary, as closed, skin pale. Tubes connecting him to wires that pulsed with dull light. Rhea's voice came through Leary's earpiece. "He's alive." Just barely. They put him into a learning trance. His mind is still connected to a system that's collapsing. Leary stepped forward. "Can we pull him out?" Rhea hesitated. "Only if someone goes in after him. The system is too broken to bring him back alone." Dane looked at Leary. She nodded. "I'll go." Kale grabbed her hand, eyes wide with worry. "What if you get stuck too?" Leary smiled gently. "Then you'll pull me out." They connected her to the console, and the world around her faded. She fell into a sea of light and static, and then into a dream that wasn't hers. She saw a city floating in the clouds. Machines teaching children with voices made of song. She saw the boy, his name was Aaron, running through corridors, laughing, learning. Then came the silence. The day the collapse began, he was locked inside the machine for safety. But time didn't stop. His dreams turned gray. His mind forgot the sky. Leary reached through the false world, called his name, and told him the truth. She said the world had changed, that others like him had survived, that they had a ship, a home, and a future. At first, he didn't believe her. But when she said Kale's name and showed him her memory, something broke through. His eyes opened, just for a moment, and he whispered, "I want to go home." Rhea pulled them both back. Leary's eyes snapped open, breath heavy, skin cold. And next to her, Aaron gasped, alive, blinking at the real world for the first time in years. They carried him back to the Starhound, where Kale sat beside him, holding his hand and telling him about stars and stories and the silly things she'd seen on Roland's cartoon chip. Slowly, color returned to his face. His voice, at first quiet, grew stronger with each day. And when he laughed truly, Leary felt something powerful spark inside her. She realized this mission, this journey, had become something bigger than rescue. It was restoration. It's not just of lives, but of hope, of forgotten dreams, of the best parts of humanity scattered like dust through the galaxy. That night she stood. With Dane on the observation deck, he didn't say much. He just watched the stars with her. Finally, he whispered, "We can't save them all." Leary looked out into the dark and replied, "Maybe not. But we can find the ones who still believe someone will try." The ship sailed on, chasing whispers and flickers of light, carrying 3 children who were never meant to survive, but now had the chance to live together. The Starhound glided through the silence of deep space, stronger now, not because of weapons or speed, but because of the hearts it carried. Leary stood at the center of it all, her journey no longer just about survival, but about rebuilding what was lost. Beside her were Kale and Aaron, both healing in their own ways, learning to laugh again, learning to dream. The crew had grown quieter but wiser, each one changed by what they had seen. Rhea, always steady, now searched the stars with more care, listening for signals not just of danger, but of life. Then, one quiet morning, Rhea spoke in a voice softer than usual. "A new transmission," she said. "This one is different." The screen showed no clear coordinates, no cries for help, just a steady pulse. It wasn't human. It wasn't Threx. It was older. Dane narrowed his eyes. "Where's it coming from?" Rhea answered. "A place not on any map. A system hidden. Between folded gravity waves. You have to know it's there to even find it." Leary stared at the signal. Somehow she knew. "It's where it ends," she said. "Or where it begins again." The Starhound entered that unknown system like a whisper sliding through cracks in time. The stars here felt colder, like they remembered things others had forgotten. And then they saw a massive structure floating in the center of the system, shaped like a blooming flower, ancient and glowing faintly with golden light. No one had built it recently. It had always been there, waiting. Rhea scanned it and paused. "This is not Threx, not Earth. It's older than both, and it's listening to us." The ship drew close, and a doorway opened. No defenses, no warnings, just a quiet invitation. Leary, Kale, and Aaron entered together, with Dane and 2 others close behind. Inside, the air shimmered with soft energy. Lights followed their steps. The walls were covered in symbols none of them had seen before. But somehow, Leary understood. "They built this," she whispered, placing her hand on a wall. "The first humans, the ones who came before Earth fell. This was their vault, their memory." They reached the center-around room with a floating orb of light. Rhea's voice came softly in their comms. "It's scanning you. It recognizes your DNA. You were meant to be here." "Thos," the orb pulsed, and then it spoke. Not in sound, but in images, waves of memory flooding their minds. They saw Earth before the wars, when science and hope reached beyond the stars. They saw the first explorers plant seeds of peace across the galaxy. But fear came too. Wars broke out. The project that created children like Leary, Kale, and Aaron was meant to protect the last of what was good. The vault was their final gift, a map, a message, a warning. "We're the bridge," the orb said in Leary's mind. "Between what was and what could be." Kale trembled. "What does it want?" Leary looked at the orb. "It wants us to carry the memory forward, to remind the galaxy who we were, who we can be again." The vault opened fully, revealing old Earth blueprints. Codes, healing tech, lost languages, and names. So many names of children taken or hidden. Rhea downloaded everything. It would take years to sort, but it was all there. The truth of what had been stolen, erased, or forgotten. Aaron whispered, "We can find them now, all of them." They left the vault with quiet hearts. No. Cheering no, triumph, just purpose. The Starhound turned back toward the stars with a new course. No longer running, no longer searching without aim. They had a map, a mission, a legacy. One by one, they would reach out to the scattered pieces of the past. They would find every child the galaxy left behind. And with each life they saved, they would add a light back into the sky. In the silence of the command room, Leary stood beside Dane. Kale and Aaron sat nearby, their faces lit by the soft glow of the stars. Ria's voice echoed gently. Course locked. First destination set. Leary didn't smile. She didn't need to. She just breathed calm and full. Let's bring them home, she said. The engines hummed, the stars turned. And the ship, once a place of rescue, became a vessel of rebirth. The past had been dark, but the future now held light soft, steady and unbreakable.